Drive family, Dr. Mike here coming at you with your weekly wellness workshop. So the big point of these evenings is to really ensure that we can make sure that our clients and the people in our community have a greater ability to make more empowered choices for their overall health care. Most people don't even think or realize the fact of the plethora of choices that a person makes on a day-to-day basis when it comes to the ideal function and health of the system of their body. So my goal is to always make sure that as we progress through our paths in life, we are forever moving forward along that path. There is no backward motion when it comes to our time here in this world. And we have the ability to either make choices that move us in a far more positive and ideal direction, or we have the ability to make choices that maybe point us in a less than ideal direction, or maybe call it a negative direction if that's the way you want to look at it. And my goal, as I said, is to make sure we can keep you moving in that more positive direction. And not that you're ideally making choices to not put yourself in that way, but in many cases I tend to find that people have either misinformation or misguidance or just don't have the viewpoint to make those more ideal choices. So that's really the big point of these evenings, is to provide the guidance and experience that I have. That doesn't mean no good to keep it within my body, so the best thing I can do is profess it out to the world and allow those people that can consume it to use it to its greatest capacity. So I appreciate you tuning into us tonight and taking a peek at what we have to offer you. So tonight is really delving in deeper to a subject that really comes through my doors almost on a daily basis now at this point in time, particularly even amongst the time frame that we sit right now with the certain changes that have obviously gone on in the world, and that really plays directly into the role of how technology is influencing our lives. Now, albeit I'll be the first to say technology has done amazing things for our world in so many ways. I wouldn't be sitting here with you tonight on a video chat, a live feed video chat, if it weren't for the amazing advances in technology. And it's really affected almost every single aspect of our life, many of which, as we said, are in positive directions. And unfortunately, there are those that have certainly been less than positive in the overall effect they've had on our life. And I take that word life to a very literal meaning when I get to this point, because technology really has played a massive role in our body's ability to stay healthy and function at its most ideal capacity. The big topic we're going to delve into tonight is that of tech neck. It's something that, like I said, we see on a more regular basis at this point in time. And really something I think we need to make ourselves greater, bring a greater level of awareness to, if you will, in terms of really what this means and how it directly affects our bodies, because it certainly is something that can affect each and every one of us if we're not cognizant of it. So let's delve a little bit deeper here tonight, and we're going to start with just a simple analogy. Now, when we talk about the human body, I'm going to really talk about the head first. Many would argue that our head is really our most important part of our system. It houses the brain. It's the master control system of everything that goes on. It's how we interact probably more fully than anywhere else with our environment around us. So the head is obviously massively important, not only from what it houses, but also in just the way our body functions. Really in big ways where our head tends to go, our head is going to certainly follow. And it can have a drastic effect on our body from a mechanical sense especially. So I really want to get into the mindset of, I want to give you an idea of really what the head truly weighs. And to really put that into perspective for you, I don't think most people understand how heavy the head really is. And it actually is quite significant. And we have a reason of giving you the analogy of a bowling ball, because very literally, your head does weigh about the size of a bowling ball. On average, somewhere between 12 to 15 pounds for a full-grown adult. So when you think about going to the bowling alley and grabbing a bowling ball, quite literally, that's like holding onto your head. So obviously, this is not something that is certainly very light or easy to manipulate around, our neck does a massive amount of work on a daily basis to keep our head not only upright but to control its movement while we're moving and interacting with our day. And this is an important analogy for me when it comes to taking a deeper look into the role of technology on the biomechanical system of our body, and more importantly, the system of our spine, which is what we're going to delve into deeper here today, and its overall effects. I want to give you an easy way to kind of think about this, particularly when we talk about referencing the positioning of our head. And I want you to think about this in the fact of the ability of changing this amount of weight and how our body interacts with it. So if you were to think about holding a bowling ball, not everybody has a bowling ball at home, especially nowadays, so if you were to think about even just holding a gallon of milk or a gallon of water, to give you a kind of a comparison sake there, a gallon of water weighs about 8.8 pounds, so it's actually even quite less than what we're looking at here today, but still significantly heavy. I want you to imagine, if you will, as if you stood up and you were to hold that gallon of water down at your side, just hanging it down at your side. It's fairly simple, right? You feel the weight of it in your hand and your grip, but generally it's not going to put a lot of strain on your arm. You could hold that for quite a significant period of time. Even if you were to take that jug of water and bring it up and hold it right here close to your chest, you again could hold this for a very significant period of time with really not a significant amount of strain on the system of your arm. But what I want you to imagine, if you will, is taking that jug of water and start slowly and incrementally moving it further and further away from our body. Now, I think most of us can start to understand that the further we start to move that weight of that gallon of milk or that gallon of water away from our body, the more challenging it's going to become for us to hold it up. And if you were to actually take that and hold it straight out with your arm nice and straight, you are going to hold that for a very significantly less period of time than you would ever dare to just hold it at your side or to hold it here close to the body. So that's a very important topic here today. I'm delving into physics and mechanics, if you will, because it plays an important role in the discussion of how technology plays a massive role on the function of our health, our spine, and our central nervous system. So I want you to keep that picture and that experience in your head. If you didn't have a chance to do it right now, by all means go and grab a gallon of something later, or if you have a paint can, even something like that as well would be perfectly fine. Something that's about that 10-pound range, and I want you to play around with it and get a sense for what that feels like, because it'll give you an important reference point as we go through the rest of the information here this evening. So this becomes important because when we look at head position, it plays a massive role. Now, I think it's easy to say that probably every single one of you tuning in tonight has a cell phone. I could almost probably hazard to guess that probably 99% of you are sitting here watching me on your cell phone. If not, you're probably on a tablet, in the absolute situation, maybe on a laptop, but even still, all three of those categories, from a cell phone to a tablet, even to a laptop, is going to change the way we position our posture, and more importantly, it's going to change the way we position our head. So I invite you to think about your normal day-to-day position when you interact with your phone, when you interact with a tablet or a laptop. What do we all tend to do? And I catch people in my office doing this on a constant basis. I always try to call them out on it when I see it. But most of us tend to sit, whether we're in a chair, chilling at home, whatever it may be, we're probably doing one of these. We tend to bring our head down and look to the floor, basically looking at our phone in this manner. We stay in this position for quite a long period of time. We interact with our phones to a large degree, and if we're significantly sitting in that position for a long period of time, it can cause a massive amount of stress. And I want you to think back to the way we talked about the weight of the head and carrying that jug of water either close to the body or moving it further and further away. I want you to notice more or less where the center of my head tends to go as we go from that more upright and normal posture, and as I start incrementally bringing it more and more forward, all the way to the point of where I would catch a lot of people looking and interacting with their cell phones. And look at where that point has gone. It went from being up here, nice and centered over my body, to being far more forward over here, falling way over in this direction here. So from a standpoint of our body's ability to hold itself upright, this puts a significant amount of change in force. When our head is nice and centered and sitting right over the core of our system, our body doesn't have to work nearly as hard to keep itself upright. But the minute we start bringing that head more forward and going into that flexed position, we start inducing a lot more force, because now instead of needing that centralized force of gravity, we start bringing that far more forward. So now we're going to rely very heavily on our muscle systems and the joints in our spine, particularly the neck, to actually bear the brunt of the force and the weight of our head dropping forward like that. Now, obviously, our head is and our neck is designed to move in this fashion. I'm not saying that that's not the case. We are designed to move that way. The thing becomes a challenge, though, when we are challenging the system and pushing the body into that position for a more extended period of time. And to kind of give you a sense of what I'm talking about here, even to a bigger degree, for those of you that are more number related, we start looking at our simple graph here, going from our first position where our head is far more centered or starting to drop forward. We're seeing about a 15-degree forward motion here going on. And we start to notice that with angling that head forward at about 15 degrees, it's going to take that average weight of our head of about 12 to 15 pounds, and it's going to jump it up to a total of 27 pounds of equivalent weight. So that's a pretty drastic increase, almost double in most cases, in terms of the amount of force of our head on our neck and our muscles in our neck as well. That's pretty significant. So if you were to double the weight of your head there, obviously that puts a significant amount of strain on the muscle systems and on those joints. So I want you to keep with me on this one here, because obviously as we progress more and more further forward, going to 30 degrees, bringing us up to 40 pounds, going up to 45 degrees, bringing us up to 49 pounds, and even as we progress all the way up to a 60-degree forward flexion, and this is where I tend to catch a lot of people playing with. I see more people sitting in this position on a day-to-day basis, even just walking around my community, than I do anything else. So we're looking at people that are taking that 12 to 15 pounds of force that your head has, the weight of it, and we're magnifying that up to a realm of 49 to 60 pounds on average. Can you imagine holding a 60-pound dumbbell in your hand and holding it like this for a long, long period of time? Now think about the average cell phone usage. If I'm thinking correctly off the top of my head, I think the average person tends to spend anywhere from about 4 to 7 hours a day on their cell phone nowadays, possibly even more so as we go even into our younger categories of our teenagers and even middle schoolers especially. So we're spending a very significant amount of our day moving in a direction and applying a very significant amount of force on our spine, on our muscles of our spine, and causing undue stress and duress onto that central nervous system. And that's our biggest concern, because this will start to negatively affect our body from a mechanical sense and from a biological sense in its ability to communicate information to the system. It's going to cause stress in that degree. The concern here particularly, and you probably heard me talk about this before, is I always say that one of the biggest things our bodies has going for it, it has an amazing ability to be adaptable. Your body, every single nanosecond of your day, is constantly trying to adapt your system to the best possible position it can be in to manage whatever is going on around you. Whether you are sitting down, whether you are standing up, whether you are running around, whether you're stressed out, whether you're relaxed, your body is always constantly changing a multitude of millions of different factors in your system, all the way from your metabolism to the muscle activity, your heart rate, your breathing, your digestion. Those things are always constantly shifting, either being elevated or decreased on a regular basis so your body can manage those systems. Now, what we do know is that as we put ourselves into that flexed posture for long periods of time, this actually is what's called a stress posture. And I want you to think back to something you've probably heard before called the fetal position. What's the fetal position? The fetal position is bringing ourselves into that tucked up fence, really bringing our head forward, protecting our internal organ systems. This is the position that our body naturally goes into to try to defend itself. More particularly when our body's under a significant amount of stress or duress and it feels the need to protect itself, it tends to go in that position. I dare you to find any person that's stressed out for any reason, whether there's stress of the physical world around them, whether they're in danger, whether they're just emotionally stressed out because of finances or relationships. More than likely, you are not going to find 99% of those people sitting in a nice upright position, shoulders back, chest out. We're going to find them into that more flexed position. They're going to close themselves off. They're going to bring those shoulders forward. The head's going to drop forward and into that more flexed position. Their body's trying to protect itself. If this is a protection situation, this is a place where our body is under stress, is this a place that we want to be in on a regular basis? My simple answer is no. When our body is under significant stress, it doesn't function to its ideal capacity. It's in survival mode. Not that survival mode is a bad thing, but survival mode should encompass a very minute portion of not even just our day, but our overall course of our life. It's there for those purposes of protection. We shouldn't be in a state of needing that on a regular basis, because the big thing about that is when our body goes into that stressed out state, it's going to move into a different level of function. Your body does not digest to the same capacity when we're under stress. Your body does not function hourly in the same capacity when you're under stress. It changes the actual chemical and biological function of your entire system. And over long-term periods of time, it can actually cause damage because we don't function to the same capacity. We don't heal and we don't repair our system the way we're supposed to when our body's under that significant level of stress. I bring this up more importantly though because I want you to take again a quick look at what we're looking at here. This looks awful similar to that fetal position, that stressed out position. So we're actually making the choice as a society to put ourselves into a posture that mimics that stressed out place. So what it does is it can actually biologically change the way our body functions and put it into a sense of stress. It can actually cause that stress on your system. And that's certainly not a good thing, and not something we want for any of our patients here in the office or anybody in our community especially. So what do we do about this? Well, I want to give you a picture of really how this can affect things, more importantly, because I want you to think back to that 60 pounds of force. That's a lot of force to be putting on your spine over the course of 4, 5, 6, 7 hours out of your day. And what that does is it causes damage over time. Because as we look at our spine is made up of not only bones, but also soft tissue. That soft tissue is not designed to take that significant amount of force on a constant basis when it's in a compromised position. So let's take a look at what we're talking about. So I really want you to take a peek here at our spine. We're looking at what's called our cervical spine, the neck, if you will. We're looking at it from the side. So what we're looking at here is we're seeing not only just the individual bones of the spine through here, but we're also seeing the opening spaces between each of these bones. This is where that soft tissue sits, which is called our disc space. Discs are an important part of our spine. They're there as shock absorbers, if you will. They control the motion of our system. The biggest thing that we have to consider in terms of the way they function is they're really not designed to be significantly weight-bearing joints. They're not where our body actually carries its weight when we look at our spine. That actually falls more so to the back side of the spine over here. So when we put our spine into that forward flexed position, into that really tucked position, we're actually taking the weight of our body and we're transferring it from this back side of the spine where it's ideally supposed to be, and we're moving it forward, and we're actually putting a significant amount of stress onto those disc spaces. And that's not, like I said, that's not where it's designed to be. So when we take a tissue that unfortunately is not designed to take that significant amount of force, that 60 pounds of additional force on our system, and we put it there for long periods of time, repetitively, day in, day out, over the course of months and years, it's going to cause damage. It's going to cause changes. You know, again, as we look to the spine, I want us to take a look at this. This is more so an ideal look at a cervical spine. This is really when I take a look at an individual and we go through our initial assessment, this is what I'd love to be seeing with the people that walk through our door. Because we're seeing great overall health of the spine. The disc spaces are nice and full and even as we go throughout all areas of the spine. More importantly though, there is a nice and gentle C-shaped curvature going on here. This is what we ideally want to see, that there's that nice gentle curvature nature to the spine where it's open to the back side of the spine, and as well the head is nice and centered over the core of the body. This means the spine is going to be able to handle the day-to-day movement of life, running, jumping, or even just falls and accidents as well, much better than a spine that is in a compromised position. Now, let's take a look at what that compromise can actually turn into as we put our spine into that forward flex position, that cell phone position, that iPad position that we all tend to get stuck into in many cases. And what happens when you do that over long periods of time, our spine is actually going to start changing in this direction. And this is what ideally we don't want to be seeing. Now, as we look at this, I want you to think about two major things that we're considering here when we look at the health of this spine by comparison to our first image. We're looking first and foremost at the curvature. Notice as we look to that curvature now, we don't have that C shape going in this direction. And if anything, we actually have a C shape to this middle portion of the spine going in the complete opposite direction. So what does this look like? This looks like a spine that's moving into that flex position, okay? Now additionally too, we start looking at the openings between each of those bones. Notice as we start dropping down through here, we start seeing that we're losing some space. It's actually not as big as the area surrounding it. That gives us the indication from this outward standpoint of looking at the x-rays that there is actual breakdown and damage occurring here at this point in time. And even more drastically, I want you to take a look here, as we actually even look towards this portion of the spine right here, we're starting to notice that there's actually bony changes going on here as well. What many doctors may even call arthritis. Now the problem is that arthritis is not the problem that was going on for this person, that's merely just the outcome. The cause and the problem here was a lifetime of poor choices and poor posture and positioning. This is actually a direct client of ours and somebody we've worked with extensively. And the big thing I had to consider with this person particularly is that when we looked at this person's spine, she had a lot of outward signs and symptoms of problems. She not only had the neck pain, she had very significant headaches on a consistent basis. She had numbness and tingling happening into her forearm and her hands and fingers particularly, that was quite common as well. So this was causing a lot of duress into her normal day-to-day life. And as we took a deeper look, we started finding these changes going on. And this is really a very typical case of what we call TechNet going on. And I say that to a large degree because more importantly, as we went through this person's history, this individual in particularly had no past history of significant accidents, no automobile accidents, no sports injuries, no history of any head trauma or significant falls, no whiplash, nothing like that. No real significant trauma from a macro level, a big level to the spine that we would normally associate with typical things of damage. And more importantly, this person was in their early 20s. We're dealing with somebody that should have a fairly healthy spine at this point in time, particularly when they haven't had any significant injuries. These changes were directly coming because this person, pardon me, was a very heavy tech user. She was involved in the tech space. She used on computers and laptops on a constant basis. She worked on her phone quite a bit as well. She was almost consistently throughout the course of her day in some sort of a flex position. And she did this for an extenuatingly long period of time, all the way through the course of high school, through college, and into the early levels of her career. She was constantly putting herself into that forward flex position. And because of the amount of strain that puts on the spine, she started seeing very early signs of degeneration and decay in the spine. Now the challenge of this is we're seeing this kind of damage occurring in somebody who should be pretty healthy. But purely from poor postural choices, there is now damage and there's now significant dysfunction. And that's always our biggest concern, is seeing that the body's dysfunctioning. It's causing stress on the system. And that's never a good thing. Now, this is certainly something that we can work with in the office, and we did have really positive effects with her in terms of making some overall structural changes to the spine to put this into a more ideal place and restore a lot of that normal function. But the biggest thing I say with any of these types of individuals is we can work with you consistently in the course of our office, but it's the education standpoint that really plays one of the biggest factors. Because for any person that looks to make a correction to these kinds of problems, we can work with you on a physical level constantly. I could see you every single day in my office, but if you walk out the door and do the exact same thing that brought us into this position in the first place, if we're not conscious about the choices we make with our posture being into that flexed position, that forward position, we're never going to make that progress that many people are looking for. We're never going to actually affect the overall health of the system to the degree that would be capable of if we were more mindful and cognizant of the way we position our body. So this is something that we have to really consider when we look at the overall health and how really important it is to really be mindful of our overall positioning. Now, I even bring this to another degree because, like I said, in this case, I was dealing with an individual that was outwardly pretty healthy. She was quite athletic. She ran on a constant basis. Really had no outward indication that there really should be significant damage in her system. Yet, here we sit today looking at this and knowing that there was. And that's a concern for us. And especially as we start looking into even our older populations, middle age, into even our elderly, who are actually starting to use technology to a greater degree, and we're putting ourselves into that compromised position. These are people that potentially have even greater levels of damage going on and are again putting ourselves into an even more compromised position to cause greater levels of not only irritation and mechanical stress on the spine, but more directly affect the quality of communication in the central nervous system. And again, we never want to compromise that. It's going to cause direct stress on the system and cause that damage to occur, not only more localized, but throughout the course of our body. It really affects our body's ability to function at its ideal best, and it gives us the ability to really experience our world in a different level. So this is how we have to approach these things. And as I say, I take that to a big level more pertortedly, because as I drop forward, we look at just some of those simple signs and symptoms. This person was a textbook case. She had significant neck pain, significant headaches, and she was getting that numbness and tingling in the fingers. Just being in this position without any history of car accidents can actually put us in this position. This is something I want to make sure people are very mindful of, because as I said, I see people walking in here on a constant basis. They come in, and if they spend any amount of time sitting in a reception chair or doing any amount of anything else than being on our tables, I tend to find people doing this on a constant basis. I'm reminding them all the time to make sure they bring their body up. The whole thing here particularly is it's not even just about, I understand carrying your phone here is a lot easier, but all you have to do is literally bring it up a little bit. Even if you don't bring it all the way up so it's sitting in front of you, the idea is you bring it up far enough so even if you don't have to tilt your head, you can merely just look with your eyes and bring your eyes down a little bit so you can actually look at what you're doing. This is going to save your body a very significant amount of stress over the course of your life. Because as I said, these are things that people do day in, day out for years upon years of their life. I know from my perspective, I've had a cell phone for probably 20 years now? So to think about this, if I'm in this position for 20 years of my life, and I'm only 30 years old at this point in time, I could be in a position where I've already caused significant levels of damage. Think about that in that respect. Think about the kids that are already doing this from square one, that are only 8, 9, 10 years old, maybe even younger in some cases. I'm seeing teenagers come through our office with these problems already starting. These are problems I shouldn't be seeing in an individual that's never had significant injuries, but we're seeing them because of these postural changes. So this is something that I have to bring light to. I have to bring awareness to. And the great thing about this one particularly, when you look at the scope of affecting your health, this is such a simple choice. It doesn't take massive action all the time to directly affect the health of our body. It's more so just about bringing consciousness to our day-to-day life, our day-to-day choices, and making small, sustainable changes on a day-to-day basis. Because if we bring those small, sustainable changes into place, we're going to have a greater ability to keep somebody moving forward in a positive direction and keep them motivated to do so, than if we try to change every single thing at one point in time. And it's always the way we try to approach things from any standpoint of guidance, of looking at coaching an individual into a better position when it comes to their health, is making those small, sustainable changes. And really, as we look at posture, as we look at particularly cell phone usage being one of the biggest problems, it's a simple choice. It doesn't take a lot to really modify our behavior here to see such a massive return on that positive choice. And I promise you, if you start doing this, if you start being more cognizant about bringing that phone up and being mindful of not keeping ourselves in that flex position all the time, it will positively affect your life in a bigger way. And for those of us that are under care here in the office, you will see your care progress to a faster degree, because as I said, you're not leaving the office receiving the care that was necessary, but going back and doing the same exact things and causing that negative stress on the spine that put us into the position we were in the first place when we entered through the doors. And that's never the thing we want to see. We always want to see people progressing forward in a sustainable pattern, not just for the moment now, but really for the long term more especially. So this is why we have these moments. This is our focus of these evenings, is to really bring awareness to things that, you know what, this is probably extremely simple, but something that, as we say, we see most people missing on a constant basis. So I invite you to make some change. I challenge you, in fact, to really take a deeper look at the way you carry your cell phone, and I want you to bring it up. Don't worry about what everybody else is thinking. People may look at you funny while you're holding it up. I've had people that complain about that one before. Stop worrying about what everybody else thinks. When it comes to your health, the choice is important. The choice is vital to make change in the way we interact with our world, and this is one that we have to do. So, I appreciate y'all tuning in here tonight. By all means, as always, if you have any direct questions about how this is affecting you, if you're experiencing these issues, if you know somebody that's experiencing issues, if you have a teenager that's doing this on a constant basis, first and foremost, tell them to change. Invoke them to change, because it will make a big difference in their ability to experience life, and that's always our biggest goal. My goal is to see people experience life to their greatest and most fullest potential, and we love to see that here in the office. So I challenge you to take a look at that. Change the way you're holding your phone, even if it's just your cell phone. You don't think about the iPad, don't think about the laptop if you have one. Just focus on the phone for today. Make a change, do it for the next week, and I guarantee you'll start noticing some differences, even just in some of the shoulder tension that people tend to be plagued with. As I said though, if you have any questions, go ahead and shoot us a comment in there, and I'll make sure I answer those here this afternoon as well. But thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you guys here next week as well. Have an awesome week.